Hi, I'm Tom Jankowski, Garfield County Commissioner. I'd like to welcome everybody to the virtual Grizzly Creek Fire Community Meeting. Last time I was in front of all of you, I think I did a lot of thank yous, and I want to do some, just want to talk about some things I'm thankful for. I know our community's we've been really on edge. We've had the fire at the edge of our community, and it's been it's been a catastrophe, to say the least. But I want to say I'm really thankful to this incident fire command team that we had fire all around the community of No Name. We didn't lose any structures. The fire was up against the east side of Glenwood Springs and didn't come into Glenwood Springs. They saved Bear Ranch, and then we have our subdivisions are on the south side of the fire, on the south side of the canyon. And all those, we didn't lose any structures in those subdivisions. When we had a small lightning fire, which was called the Red Canyon Fire on Wednesday, this incident command team came in with Carbondale Fire and put that out immediately. And so we have a lot to be thankful for. And I think, as Scott Fitzwilliam said, the U.S. Forest Service superintendent for White River National Forest said that we didn't lose Hanging Lake, and that was an act of God. So I really want to thank the firefighters. I was in a meeting earlier with Senator Bennett, and he talked about he was getting updated on the fire. And one thing I said to him, I said, when you go back to Washington, tell him how impressed and how important it is that we have these fire teams that come into our community. They put their lives at risk, and they don't have roots in our community, but they really are our heroes, and they help save us. And this incident command team's getting ready to ship out to another fire, but I really want them to hear that we're very appreciative of what they've done. So with that, Jennifer, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening. My name is Jennifer Mislivy. I'm the Fire Information Officer for the Grizzly Creek Fire, and welcome to tonight's live community meeting. We're going to share with you some great and valuable information that you'll be able to ask questions at the end of the session. Please keep those as fire-related questions. I know there's going to be a lot of them. We want to make sure we can answer all of those. First up, we have Mark Koppel. He is the Air Resource Advisor, and he's going to talk about smoke. Mark?
Good evening. As she said, Mark Koppel, Air Resource Advisor for the Grizzly Creek Fire. I'm here to talk to you about smoke conditions today, forecasts. Pretty much today was moderate to USG, which means unhealthy for sensitive groups. We had that pretty much throughout the whole area from Glenwood Springs all the way to Vail and then down to Aspen. We forecast various areas, and our areas within about a 100-mile radius. So anyway, with the smoke conditions today, with the unhealthy for sensitive groups, I want folks to be aware that in that particular population for what we call USG, it's anybody who's immune compromised, and that means anybody with a respiratory issue, anything like that, elderly people, people that are recovering from COVID or have COVID, and also children from infant to 18. Their lungs are still developing. So when you see on our forecast where you see USG, we really encourage you to seek shelter, clean air. Try not to go outside. Our outlooks that we produce, think of as a tool, a planning tool of what you, to plan your day on for outside. So tomorrow we kind of expect the same conditions, moderate to unhealthy for sensitive groups. Be aware, look at our smoke outlooks, plan ahead with them. They are available on wildlandfiresmoke.net/outlooks. You can take a look at those. They're throughout all of Colorado right now, and you get a good idea of what the conditions are going to be for tomorrow and the next day. So with that, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mark, thank you for that information. Those smoke outlooks also can be found on the Grizzly Creek Fire Facebook page and the NC under Grizzly Creek Fire. Next, we have Jeff Serber, Great Basin Team Operations Section Chief. He's going to give you a Google Earth flyover and an operational update. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Jennifer. Good evening. I think we'll start off with a map of the fire tonight and kind of go around showing. I'd encourage anybody that wants to see this map probably better. It's available to you on probably several places on the internet. But if you're interested in specific geographic areas and whether the fire reached it, that would be the map to find. So starting in the I-70 corridor, right over there. Right here at No Name, right here at No Name along I-70, you can see where the fire never made it down to I-70, but it did wrap itself into I-70 over here. So we spent several days nursing that fire down to the bottom of the canyon and holding it along the creek at the bottom. That's now called considered contained line, up to probably a mile or two, maybe a mile and a half south of Windy Point. And beyond that, all this country that I'm pointing at here is over to Grizzly remains uncontained, as well as quite a bit of the rest of the fire over there towards Coffee Pot. Coming around, we've added a containment line on the east side, on the south side, on the east side of the fire, south side of I-70, and then wrapping around over. I'll just highlight the areas that we consider contained now, where it popped up on top and it lost its speed and availability of dry vegetation. It got into more moist vegetation and flatter ground. So I just kind of wanted to use the map pretty much to show the increase in containment that's been achieved in the last couple of days. I think we were at 11% and now we're at 22%, so that's good news. And I would expect that over the coming days, we'll continue to add to that containment. So to get a little bit more specific, you can see a little bit better terrain-wise what I was talking about. The fire being held in the bottom of No Name. Windy Point is right out here. The fire continues to back down into No Name and into Grizzly from both directions. The speed at which it's moving has been substantially reduced for the last 2 or 3 days. It's been calm. It continues to smolder mostly. I saw a little bit of group tree torching yesterday, but very little movement in the perimeter of the fire. What we've done up in here, where the fire slops over into Grizzly, it'll continue to drop down into Grizzly more than likely. Need that? Okay. It'll continue to drop down into Grizzly more than likely because we can't not follow it down in there and put out that edge. So what we've done here is where it comes up out of Grizzly, we have a dozer line around all this fire crossing over right here by this little gap to make sure this portion of the fire that didn't burn. There's a reason this didn't burn. Typically on windy days, if you end up with an island like this, a green island that's this big, it's because it's aspen or some other vegetation that got out of the wind and wasn't that burnable. So that's likely to stay there and not fill in. Some portions of it may fill in, but probably not the whole thing. Again, I'll reiterate that when we make these maps, they all look like everything's burned, and it's not. We cannot show every little island of green. There could be 100 acres out there in the middle of the fire or more that's green. So don't believe that everything that's shown within that perimeter is black sticks. Some of it is totally unburned. Some of it is partially burned, where you'd look at it and you'd look at the canopy and not even realize that it burned because it was ground fire that burned everything on the ground, but it didn't get into the trees. So there's a variety of intensity of fire within the perimeter. Moving across, we're starting to get this pretty well secured all the way from Grizzly over to Coffee Pot. I would expect that part of the fire will be that perimeter of the fire will be contained in the next few days. So that's good news also. From Coffee Pot down to, here's the Coffee Pot Road right here. As you can see, it crossed the Coffee Pot Road in only one spot, and that was 3 days ago, probably maybe 4 now. when it made a run up the hill and was able to get across the switchback. And then we had folks up here that were fighting the fire in aircraft and were able to stop it on the road. It also lost a lot of intensity. As you can see, it got out of the pinyon juniper oak brush type and hit the aspen and sagebrush and the greener country up there that didn't really want to burn near as intensely. So we had people on the road that were able to spray water and pretty much hold that. We're looking good all the way down into the I-70 corridor. Yesterday when I flew, I saw one smoke up here on top of a cliff that we have not put people in. We have shown that as being black, even though there's probably still a couple smokes on the line. That vegetation is very sparse, as you can see if I zoom in. Lots of cliff, lots of bare dirt. So even if something rolls down, there's very little opportunity for it to pick back up because there's no ground fuel to start. So rather than putting people up in this extreme terrain, we observe it from the air, we watch it, but we don't feel like it has enough potential to continue to show that perimeter green. You can see over here at the Bear Ranch, this entire line here has been turned black to show that it's contained. You can kind of see there's 100 cabins right there. We burned out around those probably close to 5 or 6 days ago. Everything's secure, cooling down real nice. Coming across, I'll kind of zoom out and show what's been burned since this perimeter was done. Yesterday, we burned down this road. You can kind of see where there was still some unsecure fire edge right here. And in order to lock that fire up from being able to come downhill with a downdraft out of a thunderstorm, what we've done is this over here was burned the day before off of a road that comes around the corner and comes back down into Ike Canyon. So we burned off this road and came all the way down and locked it back into the main fire so that this fire up in this area can't return and run down towards the road and get across that road and continue downhill. So this is all secure. In here now, the newest perimeter will show that that's been burned out, and within a few days we'll likely turn that line black to show that it's secure. Today we're burning, if any of you saw smoke in the air, it's because this road right there that you can see in the middle of the screen was already an existing road. And we took some heavy equipment down through here. As you can see, it had a little bit of an ability to come up out of this spruce drainage and spot across and then get up and make a run to wherever it wanted to go beyond that. So we look at these places from the air, we look at them from the ground, and we see that Spruce Ridge itself is pretty bare all the way down. But this pocket right here, this run from this fire wanted to come this way. And you can see, I think I pointed out before, there's a big lava flow right there. That's all rock. So it was able, the fire was stopped. A lot of its forward advance was stopped by the lava flow. And then we put in a line here, burned off that line. That's what this red edge is that comes right along here. That was a burnout operation back over to where there's no vegetation on the ridge top. And since this is a Google Earth satellite view, it doesn't, obviously won't show all the work that's been done in the last few days. So what we've done is we've taken dozer line off this ridge right here, brought it down, connected back over to the main fire here because we're trying to protect this lodge structure right there. You can see the roof of it. So what we plan to do, what's that smoke that you saw today, is burning this back up along that dozer line until it comes all the way back up, burning across probably about where my mouse pointer is, through this drainage and then back over to this to lock all this fire off that's up here that would be able to possibly make a run during a wind event. So as we burn along there, we have support from fire engines, helicopters, whatever it is we need to catch spots that might occur from a downdraft or for any other reason, spot back across the line from an ember and then be able to take off down below. So that's what the firefighters are doing over on that division today. You can see up on our division Zulu, that area that's been turned black along the perimeter. They're starting to feel very secure. Again, this fire made a hard run in the wind with the fuel, hit that, and they've been able to pick up any of the spots like that little black spot right there. They've driven to that, put a hose around it, or sprayed water from a truck and made sure that it's dead. So they've done that all along here, walked the edges, and we'll continue to see this line along the top south side turn black over the next few days as soon as they feel like they're comfortable with the fact that it doesn't have enough heat left in it to get up and run again. Moving over to our last division, Division Alpha right here. I think I've described a few times, there's a power pole right up here that comes up out of the canyon and continues on to the south. We have been able to take a dozer all the way down from the top, from about where this hairpin is on the road. Brought them in here and then took them down here all the way through this down and out to this point. We did that by laying retardant in here. There's half-burned oak brush. Nobody wants to walk into half-burned oak brush from above when you don't know what's happening down inside of it, how much heat is in it, and how much it might be able to pick up and force you to run uphill away from it. So we didn't do that. We threw a lot of retardant at it. We took heavy equipment in and slowly worked our way down the edge of the fire with pieces of heavy equipment and crews following it up to make sure that fire's out. That line should be complete today or maybe early tomorrow morning. That gives us the ability to say we've locked it off from coming back towards Glenwood Springs and having to use this contingency line that I've described before that came all the way out from the main fire, followed a road system up to Lookout Mountain, over to Lookout Park. This is actually labeled Lookout Mountain right there, but I believe that's called Lookout Park, and Lookout Mountain is where the antennas are. And then we improved some hand line that came down around the city of Glenwood behind the town and back to I-70 in the river. And we shouldn't have to use that. That's the intent behind locking this portion of the fire up with a dozer and hand crews and babysitting it for a while and making sure that there's no heat left in there. Finally, we continue to have an IA group out there, an initial attack group that is available at both ends of the fire on the I-70 corridor that can respond to new initial attacks like that one the other day over off the 115 road. The fire was called Red Canyon. And, we'll continue that the entire time we're here with some of the engine and other resources that we can respond quickly from our fire to go to any new start. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for that very informative flyover and information for the Grizzly Creek Fire. Next, we have Marty Adele, Grizzly Creek Fire Incident Commander. Marty?
Good evening. For this evening, I'd like to discuss with you all what's going to happen with the team and the management of this incident over the next 4 or 5 days. We, as an incident management team, are coming to the end of our tour. With that, we go through a very complex matrices to figure out what type of management needs to be done on this incident. And when that was done by the folks on the Forest Service staff around here, we realized that it's needing another type 1 incident management team to come in behind us. So right now, our team with Jeff, Jennifer, and everyone else, we will be here through Tuesday. We have ordered another type 1 team. This type 1 team is coming out of Alaska with the IC of Norm McDonald. They are incredibly experienced. They are very capable of running a fire just like this. They've been doing it, some of them for quite some time, for years now. So you are in very good hands. With that being briefing at 1700 on Monday. At this point, the managers of the land, whether it's the county perspective, the Forest Service, the BLM, they will give the team their direction, leader's intent. We've been working with for the past week and a half to 2 weeks to get to the end point of this fire. The next day is what we call transition day. Our team, Great Basin Team 1, will basically marry up with the Alaskan team coming in, and we will show them what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, and basically a coordinated effort so there's a seamless transition of power. They continue on with the good work that we, Jeff and Jennifer and the rest of the team, have been doing with our partners, with the Forest Service, BLM, county, sheriffs, as CDOT, to make sure that we get to the end point of this fire in a safe, manageable, and efficient manner. So by the end of that day, that team, the Alaska team, will have all the information that we currently have. They will have the direction and the processes down. At that point, we will have a transfer of command where our team will very quietly step aside and the Alaska team will take control of the fire under the guidance, once again, of the Forest Service, BLM, and county. We, at that time, the Great Basin Team 1, will have a closeout Wednesday morning, the 26th, and at that point, we will travel home for a couple days off and then rotate back into a rotation where we could go to another fire somewhere else in the country. That's all I have for this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty. Also to include, during our next live public meeting, we will introduce the incident commander of the Alaska team, so you will see those individuals on the next public meeting. Next, we have Eagle County Under Sheriff Mike McWilliams, and he's going to talk about evacuations and other things pertaining to the counties.
Good evening. A piece of good news tonight, beginning tomorrow, Sunday, August 23rd, Cottonwood Pass will open for critical local passenger vehicle traffic. What that means is allowable local traffic such as travel to and from work or school, travel to medical, dental, or veterinary appointments, travel to other essential businesses or services in Eagle, Garfield, or Pickens County. Only regular passenger vehicles and pickup trucks will be allowed on Cottonwood Pass without pre-approval. Travelers should be prepared to show their need to travel, such as a work ID or badge, confirmation of a doctor's appointment, or a letter from their employer. Please visit ecemergency.org. That's ecemergency.org for more information on that. The vehicles must be 35 feet or less to be able to go over Cottonwood Pass. There are currently no evacuations in Eagle County. That's good news. The Ruby Creek fire near Walcott was contained yesterday. More good news. The Coffee Pot Road remains closed to the public, but the people who live there can come and go on that road. Independence Pass is open to passenger vehicles only, with limited access and alternating traffic on the narrow section of the roadway known as the Narrows. Crooked Creek Pass, Forest Service Road 400, that goes from Eagle to Thomasville is still closed by the Forest Service. Colorado River Road is open, but all river access from Cottonwood to Dotsero Landing is closed, including BLM campgrounds on that lower part of the river because of firefighting activity, and we're trying to keep everyone safe. If you're gonna travel to BLM or Forest Service land, check their websites because there are some closures because of the fire on both BLM and Forest Service. On Thursday, August 20th, the governor's executive order of a statewide fire ban went into effect. You need to please remember that Eagle County Stage 2 fire restrictions are more restrictive and supersede the statewide ban. You can find information on Eagle County Stage 2 fire restrictions at ecemergency.org. Please continue to respect this fire ban because it helps keep our firefighters and other public safety professionals safe. Please don't let your guard down with the increased fire activity we've seen this past week. It's important to sign up through ecalert.org. That's ecalert.org if you live in Eagle County, to receive pre-evacuation or evacuation orders if you haven't already signed up. It is very important that you make sure that you add your address on the profile on ecalert.org, because otherwise you may not receive alerts for the particular section of Eagle County where you live. Thank you.
Thank you, Undersheriff. Appreciate that. Next, we have Garfield County Commissioner Tom Jankowski. He's going to talk about Garfield County restrictions and evacuations.
Tom get close to the mic.
Thank you, Jennifer. Things really haven't changed as far as evacuation activity. Currently, No Name, Lookout Mountain, Homestead Estates, Bear Ranch, High Aspen Ranch, Coulter Creek, Cottonwood Pass, Spring Valley Ranch, and roads leading to Coffee Pot are closed and are to be evacuated. I would like to take a second to thank the Hotel Denver and Hotel Glenwood Springs who have put up evacuees from the No Name area. Communities in pre-evacuation are Buck Point Drive, Derby Mesa Loop, Dotsero, Sweetwater, and residents south and west of County Road 115. I would like to it was good news to hear from Eagle County Sheriff, and would like to thank Eagle County for getting Cottonwood Pass partially opened. They have put flaggers on both sides of that pass, and we appreciate that. Again, this is from Garfield County. We want to thank all the firefighters and all the first responders and all the sheriff and everybody that's worked on this. It's we can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we have Mike Goolsby, the CDOT Northwest Colorado Regional Director. He's going to talk about I-70. Mike?
Thank you, Jennifer. Good evening. When all this took place, starting about last Tuesday, we met with both counties, Eagle and Garfield, the Great Basin team, and some other local and state agencies to start the discussion around opening I-70. We developed some criteria around what it would take to open the road. Some of that was supporting the firefighting duties, having quick response from the firefighting teams, and also having the availability of being able to do air ops in the canyon. With that, we had to bring in our federal partners and our state bridge inspectors to look at all the infrastructure out there. In addition, current rockfall that's going on, there were quite a few different variables that we came up with to make a determination on whether or not and how fast we were going to open the road. Currently, I can tell you that it's going to be days, not weeks. We've hit a lot of those criteria to this point, and right now we feel pretty positive about where we're at. I would caution all of you that working with the Forest Service and the Bear team, and if we get the appropriate amount of moisture that will cause debris flows and other things, we could go back to a closed status fairly quickly. In addition to that, any fire behavior that may cause us to shut the road back down, we will do so. When we do open the road back up, the one thing that we will do is we will still run the head-to-head traffic that we currently have in the canyon for the construction project. There's two reasons for that. One, Xcel Energy is in there currently repairing power lines that supply things to the west. The other part of that is the majority of the rockfall activity that we are seeing is impacting the westbound portion of the interstate. Not a lot of things are happening to the eastbound currently. Also, with that being said, it gives us an opportunity to be able to move fire crews quickly through the canyon, not impacting traffic. Again, can't give you a specific date when we're going to open I-70. That will be a variable that we're still working on, but I can honestly tell you it'll be days, not weeks. So with that, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that update. And finally, we have Scott Fitzwilliams, White River National Forest Supervisor. Scott?
Thanks, Jennifer, and thanks, Mike. I want to start by just thanking CDOT a whole bunch. The work they're doing to get that interstate back up and running has been amazing, and we all have to work together, and they've been really patient about our operations, the needs of the team, the needs of the aircraft, and we all know what a huge burden it is not to have that interstate open. So thanks, Mike and CDOT, and I know, Mike, you gave up some personal time to be here tonight. We greatly appreciate it. So we're enjoying some success. We're hearing a lot of good things coming from Jeff and Marty and their team. we're hearing, good things about road openings and things around the corner. So I know we're all thrilled about that. I know we're all really excited to know that there's more black line around that fire every day, and we love to see that, and I sure do too. So, but we're kind of moving into another phase of the fire. In addition to, as Marty talked about, the transition to a new team, which we do all the time, and it's pretty seamless, and I expect this next one to be. But also transitioning a little bit about the work we're doing, and it's less of the craziness that we've all had to deal with in the early stages of it, and more of a grind. It's making sure we're moving step by step, tying up each area of the fire, and so I look forward to that part. We're going to keep our focus on keeping people safe, keeping firefighters safe. That'll always be our primary objective, but we're making progress, and I think that's fantastic, and I know everyone else does. Closures are still in effect, large closure on the White River National Forest. And again, as been mentioned a couple of meetings, archery season, hunting season's around the corner. Usually people are starting to get out and do some scouting. Just if you or anyone is planning on getting out there, check those maps of the closure orders. Our sense is that it's going to be a while before these areas are safe to allow people in. So plan accordingly. Fortunately, there's huge areas of both BLM land and national forests that are still open. I want to touch a little bit, and Mike from CDOT talked a little bit on, and I have this map, and somewhere there's a pointer. Is that it? Of course, now I have to learn how to use it. I want to show a couple maps to you tonight, because as we move forward and as we discuss a lot of information about the canyon and the issues surrounding opening the highway, we're gonna talk about this. It was mentioned at last meeting that we brought in a bear team to do an initial assessment. Normally these teams are brought in when we're 70–80% contained, but because of this steep terrain, because of the interstate, we wanted to bring that team in as soon as we could, and they've done some initial work. I'm just going to throw this map. This map you're looking at is just a soil burn severity map, and this is one of the first things that they're able to produce. And what it shows is how burned and how severely soil was charred in this fire. And you can see the canyon, it wasn't too bad. That's because it's primarily rock, and so it doesn't really show up. They're using this information to eventually get to, and if you go to the next slide, the next map. Let me pull up the next map. And this is this one. These are maps, I think, as we do more of these meetings and as we discuss more of this with the community, and certainly working with CDOT, we're going to talk more about them. And we'll get people to discuss these maps that are far better experts than I am. I'm not at all. But what these maps are showing us and what these initial assessments are showing us is where we think the highest severity or the highest potential for severe debris flows are. And you can see those are the areas in red, and there are a lot of them. That's the area around No Name and Grizzly Creek, just for an example. So these are the areas we're going to be concerned about for two reasons. One is obvious, any debris slides, debris flows onto the highway. And number two, trying to assess the Grizzly Creek and No Name drainages as far as how it's affecting Glenwood Springs water. So as we move forward and when the bear team comes back after the fire's a little more contained, they will dive deep into this. There's, what this does is gives us some idea where to watch, where to monitor, where to notify CDOT that, hey, these are some areas that if we get a significant amount of rainfall of an inch an hour or so, these are the areas that have the highest potential to slide or to have debris flows. And the difficult part of this canyon and these canyons is there's not a ton of engineering we can do. Talking to CDOT, and we'll work with them on some of the things we can do with rock engineering to catch rocks and things like that. But a lot of these areas are just too steep, and there's not ways to really just engineer debris flows out of the equation. The team has looked back at similar geology, similar soil types across this area, including, the coal seam and even as back far as the Storm King mountain fire. And we're able to draw some conclusions or some assumptions anyway on what could happen, similar area, similar geology, similar soil, what type of debris flow we can expect. But as Mike said earlier, across the, for the foreseeable future, we're going to be dealing with this, and we're going to be looking at these kind of maps a lot. And we could probably expect, inconveniences in that canyon for quite a while, especially after snow and as we get into spring. So I just wanted to introduce those maps tonight. Again, we're going to have people that are far more skilled and have high level of expertise that can explain this more and more to the public. Other than that, I don't have much more tonight. Again, thanking the team. It's just been a real pleasure to work with the communities and the team. We've made great progress. I really expected things to get quite a bit worse, and they're getting better faster than I thought. So thank you, and look forward to taking any questions.
Thank you, Scott, for that detailed information. And thank you to all our presenters for sharing the information that you guys have set forth. Throughout this briefing or out this live community meeting, we've been collecting all of your questions. Tracy Weaver is now going to moderate those questions and try to answer as many as we can. Tracy?
So the first couple questions are for Operations Section Chief Jeff Serber. Or I should call him Sam Elliott, since that's the way the question was addressed. Has this been one of the more challenging fires for you due to the steep canyon walls as well as all the assets along I-70, including electricity, water, and structures?
I'd say yes. It has been. There's a lot of moving parts, we call them, on fires, where a lot of cooperation amongst agencies. There's the railroad, the power companies, the transportation officials, the homeowners, there's just a lot involved in this fire, the National Forest, and typically on type 1 fires, those are fires where we have a lot of complexities regarding whether it be multiple counties, multiple jurisdictions, all those kinds of things. So we are familiar with it, but this has been a challenging fire. It would have been way more challenging if it had stayed a red flag and we were still chasing it. We had some help from Mother Nature, which I've talked about. We also had, both in the way of weather as well as the vegetation type change. So it has been challenging though, and it has been one of the more challenging that I can remember. And I'd like to say that the team that I belong to, Marty's team is very professional and experienced, and I hope that's the way we come across, because that's true for everybody. I'm always amazed at the comments we get from people, the appreciation that we get from people, but and the fact that they talk about how fast we come in and we set up a camp and we do all those things, but we're here for you, and we're here because we enjoy doing that, coming in, helping people, and we each have our little bit of expertise. Mine happens to be on the operations section, but those folks behind the scenes, like logistics and plans and all the people that put together these maps, I mean, we couldn't do any of it without everyone else, and I'd like to give them credit too. But it's been a challenge for all of us.
So I've got a few more questions for you, Jeff. One is, how does an area get classified as contained? I know you talked about that the other night, and just wondering if you're curious about what containment might be tomorrow.
So the way we look at containment, there's not a clear-cut definition. There is a definition in my mind, and there's I'm sure a definition of what containment means, a dictionary definition. But what we typically do is rely upon the folks in the field. I do spend time. I've been pretty much almost around probably 3/4 to more of the fire in a vehicle, talking to people, looking at the fire edge. I fly it almost every day. We for those people that are right up against the fire line, those are the people that transfer information back as far as their comfort level with the fact that even if a wind event or something occurred, they still feel pretty comfortable that it won't escape. It does not mean that it's controlled by any stretch, because you can have heat 100 feet from the line that nobody could see that picks up in the wind, and if the wind is strong enough, and blows it back across the line when nobody is there to see it, and it can pick up and take off again. So we usually wait maybe 24, 48 hours after we build our confidence as we go, and we try to be fairly conservative about containment, because there's nothing that we don't want to give a false sense of security to people and then lose something because we've done that. I'd rather err on the side of caution, and it's an embarrassment, to tell you the truth, if we call something contained and then it escapes. It's not anything anybody's proud of. It's something that we strive not to let happen. So that is probably not a clear-cut definition of what containment is, but I rely heavily on the people on the ground to tell me when they feel comfortable that it's out enough that they want to turn it black. And those are the people that turn that line black. We ask them every day, how much of that perimeter that you've been working on for the last week can be turned black now? What do you feel comfortable with? And if they don't feel a comfort level with it, we usually won't do it. I may go out and look at the line and determine whether I feel more comfortable with it, but that's pretty much what we do, the way we look at that. And tomorrow, I hate to speculate. I think I know there will be more. I know some specific spots. Every one of those black spots that's up there will gain a little bit, except for the piece that's there in no name. No name right here. I don't expect that black line to go farther north until we do something with it. We don't have people down there on that piece of line, so there's no way we're going to call that contained until somebody actually can get down on the ground and look at it, or we leave it red until it rains enough that we don't find any more smoke. We fly infrared flights. If the infrared shows that there's no heat source left there when they fly by, and we get a couple days of maps when it's showing that there's absolutely no heat left because we've received a lot of rain, let's say, then that starts to become, that comfort level increases, and we look at turning those black. But until then, I wouldn't expect this line to grow this way. Over the next couple of days, I'd expect all of this to start to close in, probably from both directions. This the same way. This has been about a day or so since it was burned. Once it cools down, I'd expect this line to advance, but we're burning right here right now, so that's going to stay red for a while. And then up here, this from Grizzly across, from Grizzly right there back across to Coffee Pot, it'll grow in the next couple to 3 shifts. I would say that'll turn black, and I don't know what percentage of the entire perimeter that would be, but I kind of described what I expect to happen.
So we did just get a mole that sent us a text and said it's 30% for tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wonder who that was.
Somebody in plans, maybe. Is there any thought to taking a crew up the transfer trail to Bowen's Loop to keep the fire from progressing farther north in that direction?
Yes, we've been looking at that. We have multiple crews. We have what's called a wildland fire use module out there. They spend a lot of time analyzing, sitting on rimrock, looking at the fire, trying to figure out ways to get down there. In fact, on Division Alpha, that little piece I was just talking about several days ago, they didn't feel that this was doable, and that's why they went to all the effort to build that contingency line. They felt that was too dangerous to send firefighters in, so we sent a couple more crews over there, and I flew it, and we all put our heads together and said, what would it take to get to that comfort level to block that off instead of resorting to the 8 miles of line. And we slowly came to the agreement that it would take retardant, heavy retardant. It had been the VLAT, the very large air tanker, had dropped there a couple times early on, and they have to drop high enough that when the retardant comes down, it's in a mist. So the mist suppresses the fire, but it doesn't always penetrate the vegetation, especially oak brush. So we had a portable retardant plant on the highway. We picked up buckets with helicopters, took it up there where you can more surgically throw retardant on those hot spots and on that line until it's so tamped down and wet that people start to feel a comfort level with walking into a spot like that, because it's not going to get up and run at them, or there's enough vegetation that's covered with retardant that they just kind of go, okay, now I'm willing to go down there because I know that fire's not going to pick up and catch me. So we did that right there. And initially they were saying, we don't want to do that. But then over a period of a day or two, it was like, yeah, we could do that. So based upon that question you just asked, we've looked at Broken Rib Trail, which is out in front of it right now. We have the Big Box Trail that I think probably shows up on some of our maps that was road systems way out at the headwaters of both No Name and Grizzly, but we want to back off if we can and find better ways. And sometimes that just takes people on the ground staring at it for a day or two, kind of going, well, I think we could do this and I think we could do that, and they kind of put together a plan. But it takes that ability to be right there and look at it long enough to figure out how to fit the puzzle pieces together and connect lines, connect the dots, kind of. So yes, we're looking at other opportunities, whether it be Bowen Loop or Broken Rib Trail or any of those other opportunities we might have to drop down into those canyons and stop it.
Thank you. And then a couple questions on some of the evacuated subdivisions like Homestead and High Aspen. What kind of activities have been going on around there as far as fire?
Well, that whole south end, the same activity really has been going on. That's been line building, what we call hot spotting, where we use whether it be water from helicopters, water from trucks, we cut line, we walk along the edge of the line and use dirt to suppress the fire on that edge. So to prevent southerly movement towards those subdivisions, we're using all those means. Not as much in the air, as you've probably noticed. There aren't near as many aircraft flying, and that's because they're not necessary. Most of this work along on the ground we can reach with either on that southerly piece anyway, can be reached with some equipment because we've built dozer line and the equipment can drive along the dozer line. We have UTVs that we're transporting personnel in, so they don't have to walk 5 miles to get to the spot where they need to work. They can drive to those spots and then get out, and they can have better production of hand line and other activities in those areas. So we continue to kind of penetrate into those areas that are still shown as red to stop that southerly advancement using whatever means we deem necessary. And we've had what we need, especially in the way of aircraft, but even our other firefighting resources have been adequate to slow that down. And I think, like I say, that containment will be increased across that south end in the coming days.
Are you familiar with the Two Rivers subdivision? Is it still in danger?
Somebody could point it out for me. I'm not familiar with Two Rivers.
I'm trying to find that out. Two Rivers, does anybody know where that is?
To tell you the truth, what I typically look at from the air, I look at topographic maps like this, so I learn geographic features off this style of a map. Drainage names, Bear Ranch, geographic and local features are much easier for me to identify than a subdivision on the ground. I see them, I see the subdivisions, I see the houses when I'm flying. I don't associate those with a subdivision name because we don't use maps that have those names on them. So we are monitoring everything out there on the south end. There really isn't anything on the north end other than cabins and scattered improvements. So I'm guessing that subdivision might be on the south or eastern part of the fire. And if it is, that my answer would remain the same as it was before, that we're using all those means to try to get that line contained. And like I say, I apologize for not knowing the common names for the subdivisions here or a lot of other fires we go to, but our maps really don't display that. But rest assured that I spend enough time in the air that I see the road cuts and the scattered houses on 40-acre parcels, and all that's really visible. So the name to me, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but the name of those houses down there doesn't matter. It's just the fact that those houses are there that I have to concentrate on to keep the fire from getting to those areas.
So I just found out it's a subdivision in Dutzero.
Oh, it's in Dutzero, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can tell by that map that we're feeling really confident with that east side of the fire over towards Dutzero. Like I say, I think I said in this meeting, we had another meeting recently, but I think this one was where I mentioned the smoke that I found up on the rim rock on the north side of 70 yesterday, where nobody has walked yet. but its ability to escape is very limited because of the bare dirt and no real vegetation that could catch from that log. So rather than walking people out to the edge of cliffs and dealing with one pinyon pine that's sitting out there that's smoldering, it may be visible to folks on I-70 or whatever, but it's not. If it has any chance of being a problem, we'll go dump water on it, and we'll have somebody across the canyon towards the bear ranch looking back at it, monitoring that thing to make sure it doesn't have the ability to escape.
Thank you, Jeff, and lots of thank yous in the comments today for your explanation of things. We appreciate it. Next, I have a couple questions for Incident Commander Marty Adel.
Yes.
Stand up close to the mic.
Copy.
What is triggering the transition to the Alaska Incident Management Team on a Monday, Tuesday? Why is that happening then?
Well, what triggers it is our tour and how long it is. We generally go a 14-day tour. We started on a Monday, or excuse me, on a Wednesday, which you count off 14 days. Our last day would be on a Tuesday. Thus, we want to get a team to come in, this time Alaska team, to come in, and we can give them a transition. Once again, express what the important priorities are, and give them all the information so they can have a seamless transition and then move forward.
Great, thank you. And then one more.
Yeah.
When will the evacuations be lifted in No Name?
No Name. No Name is, that area is pretty much directly connected to the opening of I-70. So as Mike stated earlier, we're looking at days and not weeks. So it'll be a couple more days for sure. What I'd like to extend, not only the No Name, but all the other communities that were evacuated or that we requested to be evacuated under the circumstances that we had here a couple weeks ago. We appreciate everything the burden that you're going through, the hardship. We understand. Many of the team have been in different scenarios very similar to that. So we understand what you're going through, and we appreciate the fact that you're willing to step away from your homes for a time to allow us to do our job. It helps us. It takes one more weight off our shoulders when we don't have to worry about individuals in those areas, or we have to concentrate on different topics. We are allowed really to concentrate at the topic at hand of suppressing fire or the priorities that are requested of us to take care of. So once again, we thank you for the burden you are subject to.
Thank you, Marty.
You bet.
Next couple questions are for Under Sheriff McWilliam. Will Cottonwood Pass be open 24 hours a day, or will it only be certain travel hours?
It'll start tomorrow morning and be open 24 hours a day.
Great. And then
And there are road guards on both ends of it that will stop traffic if a truck tries to go through or something like that.
Great. Have the pre-evacuation orders also been lifted on the east side?
No.
You still have pre-evacuations, okay?
Yes. We're getting more and more confident, as you can see with all the black on there, that it's not going to escape and get Dot's arrow. But we still want people to be prepared and keep in mind that something radical could happen with the weather that could endanger them. So we want them to be ready in that pre-evacuation mindset without being too nervous about it.
Great. That's it for you. And I've got one question for Mike from CDOT. At least I'm hoping this is a good question for you.
Can I answer? I don't know.
You can. Is Amtrak still operating through the canyon?
So I believe, and you guys help me if I'm wrong, but I believe the train started running 2 days ago pretty regularly. And on my way up from Grand Junction this evening, we actually did see the Amtrak train headed to Grand Junction. So I believe it is.
Perfect. That was it for you.
Awesome.
And then I have one question for Scott Fitzwilliams. There you are. I was looking on the wrong side of the room for you. So this one pertains to the upcoming hunting season, and Is the White River National Forest working with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife to consider modifications to the hunting season, mainly due to the stress already on wildlife?
Of course, yes and no. Yes, we're working really closely with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. In fact, next week, the heads of our agency and their agency and BLM are getting together to look at this statewide, because it's not just this fire. Obviously, there's large fires all across the state, and get a coordinated, consistent messaging about it. As far as refunds and changes to hunting seasons and things like that, that's completely a state CPW decision.
Thank you. I believe that concludes our questions for tonight. Thank you to all our speakers.
Thank you everyone for speaking tonight, and thank you everyone for joining us. That concludes our virtual public meeting for the Grizzly Creek Fire. Our next public meeting, our community meeting, is set for Tuesday, August 25th. We actually extended it one day so that the new incident management team can arrive, be briefed, and then we'll introduce you to them on Tuesday. So again, the next community meeting will be Tuesday, August 25th, at 6 p.m. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.